If you have ever been told you're too hard on yourself, I want you to watch this video. Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Jen Hanover, and this is my imperfect YouTube beginning. So I am always talking about progress over perfection, and I am employing that in this YouTube series because it is so important to just get something done, and something is better than nothing. And I know by now in my path of teaching, people will come up to me and say, oh, I saw you do this and it inspired me to do that. So I'm hoping that by me doing this way, not only does it help me to move forward and just take tiny little micro steps, but I'm hoping that it'll inspire you as well to take some small step towards the goal and towards the dream that you are chasing right now. Back to the point, if you have been told that you're too hard on yourself, maybe more importantly, if you feel intuitively that you are too hard on yourself, one of the most important things that you can do is practice self-forgiveness. Now, there is a lot of emphasis in pop psych these days on forgiveness, forgiving other people, forgiving, generational conditioning, forgiving your parents, forgiving people who have caused you trauma and caused you strife. But what this video is about is it's all about forgiving yourself, and specifically forgiving yourself for all the times you have tried in the past to make a change and haven't followed through. And I know you might be thinking, because you might be like any one of my students who comes here to Studio B, I always try to start things and I just can't seem to follow through. One of my all-time favorite lessons is that if you really want to make a change, the first thing you need to do is raise your standards, which I agree with. But there is a caveat to that, because I believe that before you raise your standards, before you get started on something else, you have to forgive yourself for not following through in the past. And that is going to be instrumental in helping you make a difference, because you're closing that circle. Forgiveness is like, okay, that period is finished. I'm moving on to the next period now. Join me or not, here I go. So with no further ado, this is my spoken word piece called For All the Times I've Tried Before, a forgiveness prayer. For all the times I've tried before, I here wholly, completely, and fully forgive myself. I forgive myself for every single time that I've ever tried to make a change and didn't. I forgive myself for every single attempt that I did not follow through on, every well-intentioned endeavor that sat alone in a journal or on a list in the fridge or bouncing around in my busy head. Each and every time I have tried to become better somehow, right now, in this moment, I forgive myself. I forgive myself for every time I took a crack at doing something I wanted to do and didn't do it. Those times have been many, I admit. My intentions have been good, that I know. It's cool that I strive to improve. And what's great is that it doesn't matter why my previous attempts didn't work or why I didn't follow through. I am allowed to go through my shit, and I am allowed to fall down. The point is that I made those attempts because I'm trying to be a good person and do good work. And that's not easy. In fact, it's quite rare, and I deserve some credit for that. Credit from myself. A lot of people never bother, but I do. The fact that I've tried so many times to change speaks more to my dedication to keep coming back to what's important to me rather than my lack of follow through. I am super fucking powerful, and I know that I can change anything I want in my life if I bring to it the full sincerity of my effort. I know I can, because in addition to the times that I've not followed through, there are plenty of times that I have. I'd like to pause and give myself credit for those now. All the times I've made the change, done the thing, invested in myself, and seen even a tiny bit of my energy and intention pay off. I've got a whole lot of that coming up in my life. I forgive myself for every time I said I'd quit sugar, booze, drugs, or cigarettes and ended up smothering myself with them instead. I forgive myself for every time I spent too much money on overpriced exercise clothing, hoping that because I'd made that investment, that meant somehow that I would take this time more seriously. I forgive myself for every time I then looked at those clothes in an unused pile in my closet and felt shitty about myself, like I'm someone who doesn't follow through. I do follow through, and I'm capable of proving that to myself every day from here forward. I forgive myself for each and every piece of produce I've ever had to toss, ideally into a compost, because I had a bottom fridge crisper so full of good intentions with nowhere to go, because I stopped making that food and went to the goddamn restaurant instead. I forgive myself for every single morning I've woken up with a dirty headache and an existential feeling of awful after having too much to drink. Every single time I'm offering myself a full pardon and complete forgiveness. Yes, despite the alleged fact that I'm a total dirtbag, I may proceed. I forgive myself for the lists I've made that I never crossed off and every single goal I've ever set that I forgot about and never achieved. Done, 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 baby. We are not looking in the rear view anymore. I forgive myself for every time I've woken up with a foggy head and toasty lungs after smoking too much fucking pot the night before. I forgive myself for every time I've gone and made some bonehead comment that I never should have made and suffered that excruciating nausea of worrying what they now must think of my clumsy, inconsiderate self. I forgive myself because I know that there's nothing I can do about any of that now, except the few things that are worth doing something about. And I'm here to do those things. I'm here and I'm competent and I'm decided after wiping clear the residue of all previous attempts at change that have accumulated on me, time after time, goal after goal, and layer after layer. I am starting fresh. And those goals of mine, they better look out. The first thing to do with that fresh is to determine what exactly those things are that deserve to be in my schedule and on my sacred lists in the first place. I need to be radically discerning. I deserve good things. I'm a hard worker, and it feels good to be clear to the residue of all previous attempts at change that have accumulated on top of me like a sticky, oppressive layer of failure. No gracias, no más. I'm clear now. I know what to do, even though I try to tell myself that I don't. I do. I'm here to start fresh with new awareness, new wisdom, and new information. I am forgiven and I'm free to dive in to my highest potential. And the beauty of this time is that I agree I will keep forgiving myself over and over again until I stick with it long enough to do what I came here to do. Being hard on myself doesn't get me anywhere. And even if it did, I don't want to be in that place. I will keep coming back to what I came here to do until I do it. That I can promise you. I forgive myself. I am wholeheartedly deserving of my own love and compassion. I am starting fresh. I'm not looking back. I am forgiven. So that is the forgiveness prayer. And you know, the funny thing is I've even been hard on myself about the forgiveness prayer. It literally doesn't stop, guys. And if you're committed and you're dedicated, then there are going to be days that you will need to forgive yourself 3, 4, 5 times in a row and just keep coming back. So there's a couple of things that can help with that. I wanted to give you some tools as well as some art. One of the tools is the Anapana meditation video that I posted a couple weeks ago. It's very valuable in terms of just silencing your mind and bringing your awareness to your breath. So it's very helpful because one of the first steps in being kinder to yourself and being less vigilant is in learning how to observe the thoughts that are inside your head and not react to them. So just hearing them as though they were somebody talking on the street. And you have that option to say, okay, cool, thank you, I hear you. And I'm also not going to react to that thought as though it is the truth. That's one of the first steps, is just slowing down and being more aware of the voice in your head. And the second step is doing things for yourself that feel kind. For example, I had a really hard day yesterday and I was moving, which is always so stressful and so uprooting. And I came home and I was just tired, but I knew also that waking up this morning, I would feel so much better if I just did like a base level clean. And so in that moment, it wasn't like, no, you have to do this thing. It had a totally different tone to it. It was like, this is what is compassionate to me and not being hard on myself, because then I can wake up and future Jen gets to roll on out of her new bedroom into a kitchen that's actually clean and presentable. Just an example for you. And I implore you, what can you do in addition to closing your eyes and listening to the forgiveness prayer? What can you do to be softer and kinder to yourself today? Because no matter what you've been through, no matter what you've done, no matter who you think you've hurt or how many times you've let yourself down, you absolutely do deserve to be kind and forgiving to yourself. So I'm going to leave that with you. That's all for today. I will see you next week. If this was helpful to you, I hope it's of service. And please feel free to hit the subscribe button. How do I do that? Hit this, like all the YouTube people do that. Hit the subscribe button and share it and like it, or, do the things, do the internet things. Okay, bye.